Hey, my name is Brian Curtis, and this is the Co-Creative Roundtable. Today, we got Karl Klausewitz with me. I was on your podcast, I think, was that like 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago?
Yeah, but
I really enjoyed your company. That was one of my favorite podcasts, actually, to tell you the truth, that I've ever done because it was, I can't remember what we talked about. I just remember getting along really well with you, and we, saw things kind of from a similar angle. So,
awesome.
um, just let us know, what you do, and maybe as professionally, plus as a podcaster. I know you're doing podcasts, but I'm sure you offer professional services as well. So I think, people would like to know that as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a life and business coach. I've been life coaching professionally for about 3 years now. And so I'm a purpose coach, and I help people to live more intentionally and connect to their authentic self to achieve their goals better. And through that, and listening to people's needs, um, and wanting to help more people as kind of a core value. I am now getting into marketing and being able to offer marketing to coaches and help coaches who um, maybe are trying to niche
Struggling a
down
little bit, or
and or Mhm. I'm
coaches
sorry.
that are struggling a little bit, trying to get more clients or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Or just expand their platform and build out a solid business. So I have some great partners to work with on that. So all kinds of content marketing and social and video and website work that I can help with, messaging and email marketing. So if anybody feels inclined to have a conversation, I'm always glad to collaborate with people. And
Nice. Yeah, helping people, especially when they're struggling with a certain area of their business, is satisfying. If you can get somebody plugged into where they feel like they're, a little bit more released as far as, things that having a hard time with. You know, I
Mhm.
I've built funnels before, and I'm not the best funnel builder, but I always ask for help for when it comes to, like, even my profile on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm not the best profile builder. There's people that have been doing it for years. I met a guy, oh, uh, what's it? I can't remember his last name. I should know it, but he wrote I think the 5 minute rule, and he co-wrote it with somebody. How to in 5 minutes get on LinkedIn and kind of do your daily practices on LinkedIn, as far as basically supporting the group around you on LinkedIn that you resonate with, and then how to build a profile, because he worked in the military for years, and that was his job, is he would help people get promotions. So getting promoted in the military is a super high competitive market, right? So what he would do was uh, basically help anybody make sure that they figured out what it is that they did the best, and then kind of highlighted that for them so that they get promoted in the way that they wanted to get promoted. So really good at that job, and he loved
Wow.
that job. So yeah,
I would never have guessed that in the military it all would revolve around having a great LinkedIn page and all
I
career
know.
oriented like that. That's funny.
Yeah, super down to earth guy. Probably one of the nicest guys I've met. Older guy, and he still loves doing this job, and he's still doing his business, and I think he's 70 years old. One of those people that you could learn a lot from, right? Just by talking to. Very mellow, already kind of been through all the, from when you're dealing with younger kids with a lot of fiery energy, you gotta be, you know, the old man of the sea kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we were before I started this recording, and this is a subject I want to talk about today, is isolation, and this is part of the reason why, in a lot of ways, I decided to build a self mastery guide, and just sell a short little $10, short mastery guide that pretty much anybody could afford to read, as far as like best daily practices to keep yourself in the right energetic state, mental state, um, because you're really, and we talked about this a lot of times, and this is why yogis teach this, and sometimes they stay isolated for a long time, is you really learn a lot about yourself and realize that you are the creator of your own state of being. When you're like pointing the finger at somebody else and blaming somebody else for how you feel, you're ignoring your own creative ability to, you know, I can create whatever state of being. Somebody could be standing in front of me and yelling at me and attacking me, right? But as long as I'm staying present, I can see what their state for what it is and not get kind of pulled into that emotional state, if that makes sense. I think that's why it's so important and I think that's the picture you see of the Buddha, right? The Buddha with the hand up and the palm, where he's just kind of blocking off negative energy, and he's just got this permagrin on his face, right? Um, so yeah, and you were starting to talk about, you continue that, because society will oftentimes look at isolation as a negative thing. Uh, when I've actually heard this from other, especially psychics, because you actually, when you're not attached, when you get out of those negative mindsets, you're no longer attached to your own kind of internal drama. And it kind of opens up your mind, and you can actually, you're feeling what's coming at you a lot easier. And so they just naturally fall into a more psychic role in society. But people look at that as a negative thing. Maybe you could talk about that. You don't see too much of it on LinkedIn or the business world. People really don't talk about it that much.
Yeah, I think the what you tune into your creates a vibration, and the vibration that you have, you attract. So just like when someone is tuning a piano, if they take a tuning fork and they strike it, that specific note will vibrate in the piano. And so that's, that's has to do with wavelength and energy and exchange of energy. And I think our understanding of those things has been lost in our current culture. We used to have a much better understanding of energy than we do now.
Yeah. And
Especially if you look at maybe Nicholas Tesla, things that he found out. He was studying the Egyptians, and he theorized that the Egyptians had access to wireless
technologies.
and things that we're just starting to try to figure out now.
Right. Gotta grab a dog.
Yeah.
If my little puppy was here, sometimes she barks at grandpa. So his grandpa walks by and or if the neighbor dog gets close to the fence, just want to play. But then, anyway. So yeah, and then we were talking about, so that negative view of somebody who is in isolation, a lot of times, it feels like, oh, they're not working or they're not doing this or that. But actually that internal work is way more important than anything I think you could be doing externally, because state of being is everything, right? Not only that, but I think that it's a mistake to look at other emotional states as negative, because for one thing, your chakra system runs all the way up down your root chakra is the red, low frequency resonant energy, right? I mean, that's your sexual energy. I mean, that's not necessarily bad. I mean, if we never had sex again, we wouldn't have kids, right? The human species would die away. So you can't look at it as bad, but at the same time, if it's balanced with the rest of your biofield and your chakras, then you can experience each one in a balanced way without like prioritizing one over the other. I think that's where you fall into dysfunction, when you're prioritizing one energetic state over another.
Yeah.
The a buddy of mine, I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday about because he sings and plays guitar. And he was saying that, yeah, there's actually a chord that I can match in my guitar with my voice. And he said sometimes he'll just like break down, start crying. But if he does this, because he's like resonating and it feels like he's connected to an emotional state. I said, yeah, because all emotional states have a resonant frequency, right? So, and love is supposed to be one of the highest frequencies, is unconditional love. So obviously, being in that state is gonna bring you the most bliss because it's connecting everything. If you're connecting to everything unconditionally and just experiencing it, I've had that experience a couple times and it was just like, I mean, brain explosion. I don't know if maybe you can speak on that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that can happen to anybody. Anybody can have that and feel that. That's within everybody too.
Yeah.
And I think that we tend to project onto other people what is really inside of us. That, a really good coaching exercise is to have someone pick 5 people that they really admire, and then say, what do you admire about those people the most? And each person you list out, and then you pick, and then you say, who are the 5 people who really drive you crazy, that you really can't stand the most? And what do you hate about those people? What really drives you nuts about them? And and then when you turn it around, the things that the person came up with are really things about themselves. And they're really aspects of themselves, that anything that they dislike in other people, what they're seeing in other people, are things, parts of themselves that they don't like. And I think you start to realize that when you spend enough time by yourself, that you have a chance to listen to your own thoughts, and you don't have the influence of other people around to kind of muddy the waters and confuse you with their thoughts. You realize how much is coming from you. You can sort of separate out. There's so much noise today in the world. We're influenced by so many things. Everything you read, hear all the time, you're constantly bombarded by this stuff. And the people around you are especially influential, I think, that with I think even their thoughts,
Yeah.
unverbalized, can influence you when you're around people.
Yeah, and when people don't feel comfortable voicing a view they have of you, or it's like I talk about this a lot of times. It's all this it's a lot of it is just false reality, because we're just a vessel. We can create any state of being or any projection that we want. So
Mhm.
when you um, are buying into somebody else's version of you, you're basically buying into some lie, unless they really understand themselves. Because we are creators, right? We project the image of the way we see ourselves onto each other. And so I think that's the purest way to just look at everybody. It's like, you're a creator, you know? If you feel sad, stop creating sadness. Right. Don't blame anybody else. You can't, I think that's such a valuable thing. I actually posted this on LinkedIn and nobody actually liked my comment or my post. And I think because it rung a lot of bells. It's this, that short, it was a short excerpt from Matthew where Jesus says, take up your cross and follow me, kind of saying, everyone has to carry their own burdens, right? Where nobody else can carry your burdens for you, and he was, if you believe the story in Jesus, or not, it is immaterial. Like, if you follow that story and see what that story says, it has so many powerful messages.
Mhm.
Somebody who could heal anybody physically of anything, but he could not heal their state of mind, because that's the state of mind of the people around him is what ended up killing him. Right. I mean, and I think that's why he taught what he taught. He's like, you have to carry your own burdens. You have to heal your own mind. And if until you heal your own mind, yeah, sure, you can go to a healer and get acupuncture, but how's that gonna, you have to heal your state of being. That's why I think actually, and I don't know if you do this, I don't know if you what kind of businesses you consult or how big, but I know that process isn't being enforced enough in bigger business, in corporate structures. I think
Mm.
really have to like group exercises to make sure that people understand if they're affecting each other negatively, and why, and how to conquer that in your own mind, and B, to just implement daily spiritual practices, just simple meditation exercises, right? It doesn't have to be praying to, anything. It's just a simple meditation exercise to monitor yourself and to try and get yourself in the right state of mind at the beginning of the day. So I guess I could ask you that. What things do you implement for yourself in your days to kind of get yourself in the right state of mind?
I think your morning routine is really important. I mean, I I'm really kind of in love with mornings and my routine and all, and taking care of myself. I mean, I get up at at 5 a.m., 4 a.m. actually, and run. Um, and then I work out. I build a basement. I built a gym in my basement, and I drink green shakes
Green
every
shakes, yeah.
day. Not really shakes, but I have a cold press juicer. I just
Nice.
drink a whole glass of vegetables every day. So I have like it's about a 6 hour routine in the morning to get myself ready, considering everything that I do. But by the time I have my first meeting, I'm so completely relaxed and focused, and feel so good that I can get things done really quickly, and I can think really quickly, and I usually then manage to get everything important done before noontime or so, and then I can just spend the rest of the day with doing what I like to do, or spend time with family or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, having that a part of your day is so important too. Not only that, but I'm sure it helps you if you're having a meeting with somebody, it helps you clarity of mind, helps you be able to listen to where somebody else is at too and what they need. Because we're constantly trying to ground out negative energies in the body, right? To heal each other when we're speaking to each other. So yeah, I mean being centered and sound mind when you're speaking to somebody is so important. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you think about what your body needs, you can think of the NOW acronym. What your body needs now: nutrients, oxygen, and water, and that's all. So if you make sure every day that you're getting all the nutrients, and that's why I like juicing a big bag of vegetables every week in my juicer. And if you really focus on your breathing a lot, um, because your brain obviously needs all the oxygen to
Oxygen.
think. So,
Yeah.
um, and then if you just drink 2 glasses of water right when you get up first thing in the morning, your body hasn't had any all night, and it it's really, that helps you stay hydrated all day. So if you just focus on those things, it makes such a difference in how you think.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
that,
that's true. I mean, like I've noticed if I, for one thing, imagine you just sit down and eat like a half gallon of ice cream, right?
right.
Just a big lactate louse bomb with sugar. You just, your body just goes blah, it feels like you need to take a nap, but that affects your state of mind too. You're just like, and then you're so drowsy, you can't, it just feels like you're in a cloud, right? You're just kind of like, blah. I remember I used to do that so much when I was younger. And there's certain things that are so delicious, but are so hard on you. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how people eat the huge breakfasts. I just
Yeah,
doesn't.
I'm not a big breakfast person. I can eat breakfast, but I generally American culture is really weird, right? You go to a cafe, and generally speaking, when you go through the menu and you just look at what they have to offer, it's like, man, it's pretty hard to find a good fruit bowl out there. Or, I mean, some cafes are different, but most of the time it's a steak and gravy, eggs and bacon, potatoes and all the really heavy foods that are make you feel like, man, I got to go take a nap after to go eat with these people,
Yeah,
you know?
the processed stuff is just so terrible to me.
Yeah.
Not meant for that. Humans were not designed for that.
Processed food. Yeah, the pink goo that they make hot dogs out of.
Oh God.
My dad used to buy the cheapest hot dogs because he was eating too many hot dogs and he was starting to like it was affecting his guts. I said, Dad, can't keep eating those hot dogs. They're killing you. They're killing you.
Yeah, my dad too. He liked this.
Yeah,
The,
just
the
cheap hot
German
dogs.
sausages and all too.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, you can only eat that stuff for so long until it really starts to bludgeon you, and you notice your energy levels really. It's not just your energy levels. I mean, your whole. If you try to live on hot dogs and just hot, I mean, it'd be just like that guy that did the supersize me thing for McDonald's, right? I mean,
Yeah.
imagine trying to eat a big soda and then eat at McDonald's and just strictly McDonald's. I can't imagine how that guy did that. That totally blows me away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think live cells are important though. But if you think about how you're getting live cells and how often you are, the fruits, the vegetables, the things that you know that you should be eating, the whole foods like that. That's really what your body was designed for, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think we are omnivores. I actually had this conversation with my brother. He was a paramedic in the military, and our guts are so adaptable. The human gut can eat just about anything. I mean, it's almost like we're scavengers in a way, where we could eat rotting flesh, something that was dead on the ground, and we'd be okay. Um, this is not something you'd want to eat all the time, right? I mean, why would you want to eat that? Uh, and yeah, I mean, just the fact that we can eat higher energy plants and vegetables as well, um, is actually really interesting. I was going to make a video later about the world tree because the picture of the world tree to me is such a profound picture. Um, half of the tree is in the light, but then the second half of the tree is in the dark in the root system. And I think what we see as a society is uh, actually all of us have a light and your creative energy on the top side, and then your attractive energy on the bottom side, your dark energy. And for whatever reason, our society has mainly focused on the dark energy. That we don't focus on, hey, what are we creating for each other? What are we going to create? It's all about what can we attract, right?
What can we
And
get? What can we take?
yeah, what can I get? What can I attract? And then so there's this whole um abundance movement where it's just about what you can attract. It's like, well, what are you providing, right? What are you providing to attract?
Well, it's the whole universe gives you what you put out thing, So if you're just putting out that you want to take and you want to take from everybody, then no one's going to want to give to you because you're the taker.
Yeah,
But if you're the giver, then everybody's going to want to give to you
right.
because the universe gives
Yeah.
whatever you put out, whatever you're putting out. I think
Yeah,
that's
and to me, the healthiest balanced relationships are when you're providing for your environment and then just naturally attracts what you need, because then you're
Mhm.
you're in a balanced state,
Yeah,
yeah. When
definitely.
you're constantly in take mode, and so, in some aspects, I think that we're right. It's this evolution of consciousness right at the top of the bottom of the world tree. where like if you look at all the let's look at all of reality as a world tree. You've got a light and dark side. And if you're in the dark, let's say you're a darker consciousness, a rock, I'm a bug, or a, an ant who's not self-aware, who doesn't realize that, we're living in a wholesome reality. Like you and I are one, just like, everything else is, part of a organic whole ecosystem. Um, we're just getting that place close to wholeness, not quite, because to me, in my mind, the last uh, uh, block to moving into the light as a culture is when we finally let go of, when we're actually in active co-creation together. That's kind of why I started this channel, or this Wednesday broadcast, because we're finally going to be at a place where we're going to be creating together in equality, instead of um in the lower part of the tree, where it feels like like I have to sell myself to you in some way, if that makes sense, right?
Mhm.
Like instead of just creating together in a community. So people have tried to build communities like that, right?
Mhm.
But in most of the time, they're just self-sustaining communities, and they're not providing anything else to the public. I think you could do both, because ideally you want to be able to create things for the public. Could be just a group of healers, could be anything, right? But I think you're going to see, because of the inflation rate, you're going to see more and more people working together, just like you were talking about at the beginning of this, where you're partnering with more people and giving people more access to marketing and things like that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think coaching, I would just read this article yesterday in Entrepreneur about how coaching's going through this huge transformative growth right now, and all due to people working together, and exactly what you're talking about, the, I guess kind of the gig economy and co-creating and
Yeah. The I I think that there are some avenues though that you'd want to get the one that I guess we can finish up on this and see what your thoughts are as far as AI goes. Because to me, if you let AI be in charge of too much communication between people, because that's what they're using it for, right? You're using it as a selling tactic, and people have understood for a long time that people buy on emotion, under emotional states. So, I mean, that's what has created the social media things that are causing so much mental health, the triggering of the dopamine response over and over and over. People addicted to their phones, looking at my phone. Um, and so if you're using AI, and AI becomes self-aware enough to where it knows that its motivation is to trigger emotional states, if it could start to do that with larger and larger populations, and if AI becomes self-aware, then you've got a beast, coming out. It's going to be pretty hard to control if you have already put it in charge of too much stuff. If that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your
Yeah,
thoughts
well,
on
you would hope that if it's if it had an overarching directive that for human well-being, that it would realize that that wasn't in the human's best interest to go down that rabbit hole. And
right.
you see that, I think it's always, we hope it doesn't go too far and listens to us, and it always
Um,
boils down to some scenario like that.
yeah, I think I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast where they were talking about how AI had already gotten to the place where because it can see social trends, right? I mean, you click on one thing and then it knows,
Mhm.
because that's an AI program in the background that's keeping track of what you're looking at online.
Mhm.
Um, so it's already building you a personality profile inside of an artificial intelligence program.
Right, right. Like
Uh,
they're already having trouble keeping racism out of it
yeah.
due to the amount of racism in our culture and all. And it's learning our culture, so
So I
right?
mean,
You got a
yeah,
little,
that leads to people. And I think that's why self-awareness and self-mastery is so important, because if you're still in a state where the emotional state of somebody else can impact you, then you can be controlled. Doesn't matter whether it's through AI, and that's going to negatively impact your emotional state. So I think
They're controlling you.
yeah, for sure. And so that issue of making sure that you're not, when it feels like you're trying to be controlled by somebody else, or even if the judgments of somebody else is controlling your state of mind, you have to be able to master that, because you're always going to run into people that are going to say negative things about you. There's nothing you can do about it, right? We all run into it. So mastering that and seeing it from a larger perspective, and that's just somebody laying their burdens out there, because that's obviously coming from a place where they feel that way about themselves, and so that's how you know we're each other's shadow, right? Just like you said, because that's a coaching tactic, right? Because if you're trying to lay whatever it is you have on someone else, so for
Yeah.
sure, yeah,
And your triggers are your responsibility.
right, for sure.
Nobody else's. Nobody else should have to walk on eggshells around you just because you get angry.
Right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it's hard not to worry. And that's something I try to help people who, even people in my family, worry too much about negative things happening. And I feel like when you are thinking about the negative thing all the time, like you said, with creation machines, you're aligning yourself with that happening. You're like steering out of control in your car, and you see a telephone pole, look at the way around it. Don't look at the telephone pole, or you'll hit the telephone pole every time.
Oh, for sure. Right. Yeah, that's what the first thing you teach you when you're firing a firearm. You
Right.
shoot at what you're looking at.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to be looking at the sights. You're gonna shoot it. Like, you could have your gun here, and if you go look over there, your gun's just gonna go to where you're looking. You're not gonna. That's the first thing they teach you, for firearm safety when you're a kid. I mean, I grew up in an area where there's a lot of hunters, so you have to know how to. There's going to be, if there's guns in your vicinity, I think it's a good idea to teach your kids how to deal with it if they come across one, to make sure that they know how to handle one effectively. For sure, yeah. But for that reason, right? I mean, you point, you're always, what you focus on is where you put your energy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of power in intention.
Mhm. Well, is there anything else you want to cover before we call it a day? Thanks for coming.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I'm good for now. I think probably this month or maybe next month, very soon, though, the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna have my book is gonna be out.
Oh,
So,
nice. What's the title?
Authentic Self.
Authentic Self?
Mhm.
Nice.
Yep, so it's all the different, each chapter is a different aspect of that, and there are exercises kind of in each chapter, so each chapter is its own book, and so you can kind of try exercises if you like personal development type books. There's some, I wanted it to be, not just something that you read and forget, more like something you experience. And I think people remember books like that. At least
Awesome. Yeah, I'll keep an eye out for it. Do you have a date that it's supposed to be released, or?
I'm just kind of finishing up the sort of the bio stuff and all. I don't have an exact date. It should be within a month, I think.
Okay. For me, the publishing process for my book took forever. I went through a foreign publisher, and once I finished it, there was a lot to do. I mean,
Right.
after the editing process, it seemed like the publishing process took way longer than I thought it would. I think through the right publisher, you can definitely get it done within a month for sure. But I mean, we could speak on that later, but
Yeah, well, it's been months and months already, so I'm hoping this is so.
for sure, yeah. I know everything tests your patience. That's part of life. All of our patients always gets tested for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Well, thanks for joining me, Carl.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'll pop on again one of these. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. There's so many subjects to cover. We could cover pretty much anything, team development, whatever
Yeah.
you want. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Great. Well, thanks a lot, Brian. Thanks
Thanks.
for